Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 624 with a review of Chemical Hearts. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week in the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a streaming platform near you. Or should I say, hopefully more films are coming to a streaming platform near you. I feel like when this pandemic started, everything started to switch to VOD, and it was like, cool. We're not able to go to the movie theaters, but we're still getting all these movies. I don't know if you've checked the release calendar lately, Steven, but it feels like as the weeks have started progressing, starting last week, there's less and less available on VOD and more that's like listed as, quote, limited release because all the damn movie theaters are starting to open up. I don't know where this podcast is going to go moving forward.
I don't know. I'm not planning on going to a movie theater anytime soon, so we're going to have to carve our own path. But there will always be VOD releases, Chris. We know this. There will always be American Pie sequels.
That is true. But yeah, it definitely felt like for a while there were some weeks where we had to actually whittle down the choices that were coming to VOD so we could pick something to do a review for. And now it's like, I guess we'll just do the one thing that is actually available to us. It's a wild world.
It doesn't feel good. And I know we were talking before about how TIFF is still happening this year. And for the press, they get some digital version. But the movie world just feels so different this year. Like, I don't know what could possibly be playing. Like, normally by now I would have heard, like, buzz over the, like, 10 Oscar-y type movies that are coming out. I have no clue. I have no clue what the rest of the year looks like. All I know is Charlie Kaufman has his new movie coming out. Gonna watch the shit out of that. Bill and Ted. Gonna watch the shit out of that. That's about it. That's where
we got Mulan coming out.
Oh, yeah. I'll watch Mulan. Fuck yeah. $30. I don't care.
Yeah. Or as I like to call it, Moolah. Because of the $30, you know.
Yep. But like it.
But yeah, I mean, so there's definitely things coming up in the next few weeks, but it's going to be interesting to see if there's a whole redoubling down of closing all the theaters again in a few weeks when everybody starts having cases spike of COVID again and everywhere that they release Tenet. It's going to be... Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it.
Me neither. But here we are. Maybe we're going to start being like... We'll start reviewing shaky movie theater footage of other movies. Like, those assholes who record in theaters.
I definitely in the past have watched those, like, long ago in the past, if I'm allowed to legally say that. But yeah, I definitely don't. It's not worth it enough in this current time, right? Most of the times that I have done that, it has been in emergency cases where, like, I just couldn't see it and, wanted to late at night one time just to fit it in. But yeah, it's not worth it to. Also, I mean, there's probably people in that footage, the back of their head, who are going to contract COVID, and then it just makes it like a weird, dark experience.
Yeah, then it's like a snuff film. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, not a fan.
I've actually never even pirated a movie. That's the true fact. Like I haven't even watched a pirated version of a movie.
That feels like a lie.
No, it's true. It's true. I haven't. For some reason, torrent has always scared me, and I've just never done it. The only time I came close was my holy grail was to watch The Real Cancun, which was a real world movie that came out when I was too young to be allowed to see it. And it was supposed to be like spring break. Oh shit, people are having sex and drinking and doing drugs. And it was like, at the time it was the unobtainable movie for me. Like this is such an adult crazy movie. And when I was like 22, my friends and I were talking, we were like, we could just fucking watch that. Like, I bet we could watch it. And I couldn't find it anywhere. And I almost torrented it, but I didn't.
Well, at least you have your morals.
Yep. There was as long as we're diving into the psyche of being like a young Christian kid who is aware of bad movies but not allowed to watch them, there was a website that I forget the name, but it was for parents to read, and it had like detailed synopses of all the reasons a movie was rated R. Like, whoever wrote that must like write erotic fiction because they were very detailed. And I would occasionally read them and just imagine getting to watch the movie. And that was my life.
Until the one year that girl transferred in from another high school and joined you in the school newspaper.
Yeah, that changed everything. When Grace came to town.
Cool. Well, what do you say, Stephen? We get into our review of Chemical Hearts.
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to take a listen to the trailer for Chemical Hearts, and then we're going to come back and give you that review.
You are never more alive than when you're a teenager. Your brain is flush with chemicals that can turn your life into a story of epic proportions. And yet, by the start of my senior year, nothing interesting had ever happened to me. Then, something finally happened.
Hi guys, come on in. Grace just transferred here from East River. I think you make a truly dynamic editor-in-chief duo.
I'll help with editing and design, just not writing.
Hey, why'd you give up writing?
I was asked to write something about someone really important to me, but I just couldn't find the words.
It's funny, because I can't find the words when I talk, and you can't find the words when you write.
Have you ever had a girlfriend?
No.
Why not?
I don't know, I'm not really good at this stuff. I feel like I don't know anything about you.
I used to be good at socializing.
What changed?
9 months ago, a car swerved coming around a bend and flipped. Come here.
You look,
Thoughty?
I was gonna say hot. Hey, Grace, just want to say hi. And that hope last night just kind of meant a tiny fraction to you as it meant to me. That was done.
The teenage years are limbo.
Is that your mom?
No. Yeah, it doesn't matter. The world tells you to express yourself, but the minute that you do, it tells you to shut up. Just ask her what's going on.
Are you all right? I don't know, like, how I'm supposed to help.
I'm messed up, Henry. I'm messed up. No, it's not when you realize you can't fix me.
What's wrong? It's regular stuff you are not going to understand.
We're not regular people.
No, are you kidding me? Your relationship's been perfect since you were, like, my age.
There's a reason why when every adult talks about young people, they can't avoid the truth.
Stop leading me on.
I'm confused, Henry. I don't know.
I know. I've known since, like, the very beginning.
That being young is so painful. It's almost too much to feel.
All right, so that was the trailer for Chemical Hearts. It is basically about a young high schooler who is, has big aspirational dreams of becoming a writer and works his way into the school newspaper and meets a transfer from another high school. And it's all kind of about his time and experience interacting with this young woman from another school. Stephen Miller, what did you think of Chemical Hearts?
Chris, this weekend I learned that you either die a supporting player in Paper Towns or you live long enough to start your own generic cereal in a plastic bag, just like on the bottom of the shelf version of Paper Towns. 5 years have gone by. Austin Abrams is still a high school senior hoping to get laid. Attractive girls still have terrible secrets that are hiding that only you can fix if you're willing to remember where they go when they're lonely and run to them. All the cool kids still listen to music from exactly 2010 for some reason. I hope you like this movie because I didn't like this movie. And it'll make me feel better if somebody likes this movie. I don't know. It's just it's very predictable and very generic. Like this hits all of the tropes of the young adult graduating high school movie. And there's something about it that for some reason felt particularly irritating to me this time around, just because of how cool it tries to be and how heavily it feels like it's telegraphing its themes. I feel like...
Wait, Steven, are you telling me that a person with a hobby of putting together broken vases might actually want to put together broken people?
Yeah, I know. We both, when we were watching it, were like, don't say it. Don't say it out loud. Also, when will movies and TV shows ever discover a poet who isn't Pablo Neruda? I feel like he's just like the one who is the shorthand for like, I'm a romantic person. Ever since Ted Mosby fell in love with that one dude pretending to be his girlfriend in that episode of How I Met Your Mother. Yeah, I don't know. This movie was just very nothing to me. It was very muddled to me, I thought, because from the trailer, it seems like we have a writer in Austin Abrams. We have a former writer in Lili Reinhart's Grace. They are going to meet each other and kind of open each other up, unlock each other's secrets. They're going to make each other better. He'll help her through trauma. There will be healing, and it will be a meditation on, the difficulty of being a teenager and how to make it through. I feel like after deciding that was what the movie was about, they forgot to do it, or at least forgot to do it in a way that meant anything. I feel like, I don't know, the actors are all fine here, but I feel like the character of Grace just swerves between being cool and completely fine to being wildly not okay. And there's very little connective tissue between those two versions of her. And the lead character, Henry Page, who also Page, writer, last name Page. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Girl from another town, Grace Towns.
Yeah, it's Page in Town. It's basically Paper Town again. They're just shoving it in our face. But there's just, I feel like doesn't really have a personality. He's kind of a stand-in for all of the introspective, I'm not cool, but I'm, thoughtful and shy characters that we're used to from these young adult movies. And I just felt, I didn't feel like anyone would want to spend time with him, including me. I don't know. It wasn't a movie that made me angry. I kept waiting for something to happen that wasn't the complete color by numbers version of this YA story, and nothing ever happened that swerved from that at all. It was all just very, very, very predictable, and I didn't feel like it did a good job. And then the way it shoehorns the love and sadness are just chemicals, man. It's all chemicals in your brain. That felt like an afterthought. I know it's based on a novel, and presumably the novel goes into that by Crystal Sutherland in a little bit more depth, but this just felt like someone saw half of a TED Talk and is all right, I'm going to put that in my movie. This is neuroscience. Yeah, I don't know. I found it annoying. I like Zoomer Ed Sheeran, his best friend. He's cool. He'll be in stuff in the future, I feel like. The lesbian couple was kind of cute. I liked the Zoomer energy, at least, that this is more, they're more cool and more open and queer and culturally into different stuff than I feel like people 10 years ago in these movies would have been. But didn't like it. Wasn't a fan.
Yeah, I wish, Steven, that I could tell you I really, really love this movie. Just so that we could have a good back and forth dialogue about it. But I didn't. I think some of the stuff that annoyed you is 100% on purpose. I think what this film is trying to show you is that the reasons behind the normal relationships in most of these type of films that you watch are it's never as complicated as they want it to be in another film. This is relationships are really, really complicated, and sometimes the outcomes should be easy, but the weight for the events that you're dealing with are so heavy that it's just hard to get over. And I think that what this film is trying to do is show you that this is his first love, and for him, there's a scene, it's in the trailer where she's I just don't know, and he's I've known from the first moment I met you, right? And this film is trying to explain why those lines don't mean anything. Life is more complicated, and even if I want to choose something, my backstory may prevent me from wanting to choose that, or at least make it very, very difficult to make that choice and make actions in another direction. And I think this film is kind of good at showing how complicated young love is. So I sort of half applaud it for trying to do that and somewhat kind of succeeding at moments in doing that. But I think this film's real problem is not anything about these two characters or even really the technical story that they're going for. But I think the problem is that the rest of this film doesn't exist. They're all of the side characters are not even there. This whole thing centers around so Henry Page is at the start of this film, he's writing a letter to get into the school newspaper. It's his audition. He's writing a letter. It starts the way other films start, with writing a college acceptance or admittance letter, right? It's somebody trying to sell themselves.
This could be me and Earl and the Dying Girl.
Yeah. It's somebody trying to say hey, here are all the reasons why I am worthy of having this job writing for you. The transfer from another school just gets thrown into the job, and she keeps constantly saying that she doesn't want to have anything to do with writing. So it's like, well, what was the opening scene other than bookends to the story where our narrator can do the only example of his writing in the entire film, which is the beginning and the end of this film? It goes back to my complaint about most of our films where somebody's supposed to be really, really good or super into something, and you never see them use that skill or passion ever at all. So this film kind of had that kind of problem. But I think in general, there's nothing happening outside of these two characters' experience, and all of the characters are paper people for this paper town, right? They don't exist. They have no backstory. They don't even have agency in this story. It's just two people who are sort of going through a thing, and you get little moments where they try to fill in some backstory, but ultimately the characters themselves don't care about their existence in this story. They don't take actions that change the trajectory of anything. They just sort of exist. And I felt that was a very strange thing for this film to do, because it feels like really like this feels like the first pass of a movie, right? Like what we did first is come up with the trajectory of the two main characters and put them on a path to accomplish some goal or not accomplish a goal or do whatever, to go on a journey. And then you take a second pass through and you write all the ancillary characters and give them life and something to do. And this film just completely skipped that step and was like, oh no, I mean, there's people there because it's a school, but like nothing is really going on. And that bothered me so much. And also, this is a school newspaper who puts out 4 issues a year. Mm-hmm. And there's never a scene where anybody's writing anything of, wait, like, cool, they come up with a theme of our 4th issue is going to be limbo. But like, there's literally scenes when they're quote doing journalism stuff, which is like, should I make this title bigger? Or we don't need a subheading right there, right? Oh, just let me delete that.
Yeah, like, it doesn't care at all about how, like, actually making a school paper would have worked.
Yeah. And like at the end of the film, he's writing something in the final issue, and at the end he hits return, and then the movie ends, right? But there's he hasn't learned anything really. We were joking before the episode started about how this film is completely from the boy's point of view, but the IMDb description explains it as though this film is from the girl's POV. And I think that like she is the only one that has a real journey that she's going on. He sort of is at the same spot at the beginning and at the end of the film, and he sort of doesn't understand how the world works because he hasn't done this before. But I feel like there's nothing going on. So I like the attempts to show how complicated relationships can be, but I feel like the film itself is not striving to say much or do much of anything. But I think that those interactions between the two of them do feel genuine, and that kind of carried me through the movie as I just kind of like held on to like a boogie board with like a little 1-foot wave as I just rode this little like... I don't know where that metaphor is going, but...
Yeah, well, I couldn't ride it. I don't know. I like everything you're saying is basically how I feel, which is like that bit in Arrested Development in like a later season where they're talking about, I forget, it's like there's no problem with downsizing, and then like someone walks in and opens a cabinet and pulls out like the one granola bar that's in the cabinet.
Yeah.
You know, this kind of felt like that, where they have the critical path and then they don't do anything else. And that would be kind of okay for me if the critical path were interesting, but it isn't. Like it actually kind of annoyed me. I feel like the things they talk about in this movie are being a teenager is really difficult and confusing. You're caught between childhood and adulthood. You don't know where you fit. You don't know how to grapple with the world yet. People are haunted by dark thoughts. You know, there are many books about suicide, like Romeo and Juliet, Catcher in the Rye, Young Werther, and we're going to dive into those ideas. But it isn't about any of that. Like I feel like it doesn't say anything about the things it claims to be talking about. What it is doing instead is having, and this is probably in the trailer, so hopefully it isn't too spoilery, having Grace be grieving a person who died, the details of which we only barely learn more of. and the shape that her grief takes is like not, as far as I can tell, a realistic or interesting idea of grief and healing. It's just like sometimes she will disappear without warning and be screaming and be crying, and that's all she is. You know, she's just like a bunch of feelings, and you, the stoic guy, have to stand there and be like a good friend and not say anything. And like that is the best you can do. And I don't know, I found it annoying. I felt like if you are going to tackle trauma and grief and suicidal ideation and things like that, you should have more to say, at least about the main characters, than that.
Yeah. Well, I will say...
I also was... go ahead.
I will just say that the one thing this film does interestingly, and I'll try to talk around it a little bit, is that we know that she's dealing with this grief, and we know that it's obviously going to be a potential blocker for this relationship, but we don't have a lot of context for how deeply she is embedded within the world of this grief. And I think that when that is finally revealed, I think that is pretty impactful. Like it does show a level of why it's not easy to just go like, oh no, it's cool, I want this other thing. Like where she literally has put herself to experience this stuff. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then if I wanted to give a charitable read to like some of the times where she was escaping, because obviously some of the times she's escaping back into the world that she's put herself in, but there is one time where we see her, it's in the trailer, where she's like she's attempting to run on a track, and I assume that her injury is part of the manifestation of the memory that she's trying to get rid of, and if she can like walk normally without her crutch, then it's easier to literally step away from part of that trauma. So that's my charitable attempt at why that scene is important.
Sure, no, it's fine. What I found weird about that scene is
that he's just creeping from underneath the bleachers.
Yeah, well, I'm forgetting his name's Henry. Yeah, so Henry comes there because his friend said, you gotta go, she's acting really weird. But she's not. She's like, she has a limp and she's trying to run and she's getting frustrated that she can't run. Like, I don't feel like that's that weird a thing to do. Like, Henry is a total creep in this movie, and there are multiple times where I feel like he completely violates her privacy. Yeah. He doesn't always even ever cop to the fact that he did it. And it's strange that the movie kind of, if not rewards him, it clearly like lets him off the hook for that behavior. Like, he is the good friend who helped her through all of this, and it doesn't question like, did you have a right to do those things? You know, like, was that yours to take?
Like the first time that he follows her to a certain location, if he would have revealed himself and said like, hey, sorry, I followed you here, what's the deal with why do you come here? At least that would have been like, everything's out in the open, and you can have a little mini breakdown of like, why did you follow me? I didn't want you to see this, sort of thing. And you can deal with it in the moment, and then you can move forward from there. But yeah, when he's like, when he's not so slyly creeping around from different places, it's definitely a little weird.
I kept wanting her to like turn and see him like in a horror movie. Yeah, I don't know. I like every scene in this movie made me want another movie that I feel like did the same thing better. Like when they're at the party and there's multiple things happening, like there's a friend who wants to get with another girl. There is like this awkward situation taking place. Like, if we're going to be in an unrealistic high school party that looks like a frat party, but like cooler than any frat party, like, I don't know, give me Booksmart. Like, give me a movie that actually does that and steers into it. Including even the like lesbian crush scene. Or if you're going to have people just kind of like hanging out and being more naturalistic, give me like Big Time Adolescence. Give me the heart and the feeling, and don't layer on the melodrama. Or if you're going to layer on melodrama, give me like a John Green novel turned into a movie. Like, the reason Paper Towns worked is the heart is actually good in that movie. Like, I feel like it's in the right place, and the dialogue is pretty good. Like, it's well written, it's well thought out. The character, like the journey they go on, fits. And this just felt like a kind of half-assed version of those movies to me. Like, it didn't ever really rise to the challenge. And that frustrated me because it's dabbling with very serious material. I also feel like, I was going to ask this before, have you ever seen a movie where the genders are flipped in this story? Like, where the guy is the person who is, like, inscrutable and dealing with something, and the female protagonist wants to save him? Because I feel like it's 2020, like, we should be getting that story by now. But it almost always is, like, the beautiful damsel in distress and the, like, reclusive dude who's the only one who can understand her.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Like, I guess kind of Spectacular Now, but that still follows Miles Teller. That's not following, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just seems weird to me because that's such a cliche, like a very like Manic Pixie Dream Girl cliche to still be doing, especially now in like Zoomer years when I feel like they should be like bucking all the trends and going their own way.
Yeah. Though she's not really a Manic Pixie Dream Girl though, right? She's sort of like a depressed like...
Yeah, I'm definitely abusing that word.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nathan Rabin. Definitely not Manic or Pixie. It's the girl who... It's the idea of a character who you think can save you, so you will ignore all the emotional turmoil issues that she has not dealt with in her own life yet. And like, there's something about that feels very condescending to me. Like, the idea that is the right dynamic to have is like, I love her and it doesn't matter that she never lets me in and that sometimes she throws on dresses and runs to this place. Like, I don't know, there's something like that is meant to be loving about it that feels kind of condescending instead when people tell that story.
Yeah. So there are two things that I do want to talk about. One is how the grief is manifested in the early parts of this film, which honestly kind of bothered me a little bit. I think, like, obviously this is a young girl who walks with a cane and one of her legs is not fully functioning, and she doesn't want to drive in cars, right?
And she can dance.
So, yeah. So without getting too spoilery, obviously in some capacity, she was involved in some sort of automobile accident. It's safe to say. You can kind of figure that out instantly. My problem is I'll give you an analogy. A year ago, whatever it was, I had a bad spill on a boosted board, right? I flew over the top of a car. And it hurt a lot. I was totally fine. But it was like, it definitely scared me, right? I was a little afraid to ride the skateboard for a while after that, because I took a really bad spill that could have been like really, really bad, but I walked away there fine. I wouldn't go, well, I don't want to ride it, but I'll sit on the back of it while you ride it, Steven. Let's go for a ride, right? Like, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. I feel like if you were involved, like if you are scared...
Well, and also, let's heighten the analogy more. Let's say a year ago, you also weren't the one driving the boosted board.
Yeah, true. But I mean, before you even have that much of a context, I feel like if you were scared of being in an automobile, you wouldn't be okay with being a passenger. That just wouldn't happen. Like, you can't just like compartmentalize that type of trauma to go like, well, you know what? I mean, we can totally go for a ride, but I'm just not going to be the one driving. And then, as you hinted at just now, in the real story, her backstory, she was also not driving. So she definitely wouldn't want to be the passenger, especially not with a potential love interest. Like,
right.
It just, that was so frustrating to me that, like, because I my head was going all kinds of places, and I wanted to expect that she was driving and was maybe at fault and maybe hurt somebody in another vehicle. Like, there's a lot of places you could go that would make her be like, I will not get behind the wheel of a car. Maybe she was drunk. Maybe this is another Earth, and she's like, just all of her regret stems from like killing somebody after one night of drinking. But I feel like which is the very opening of that film. So it's not a spoiler, and everybody should go watch that movie because it's great. But anyways, like it's there's a lot of places where it could go where you could understand why her guilt and her trauma would prevent her from wanting to be in a car. But I feel like this, the rationale of like, well, I'll totally go for a drive with you. I can't drive is just, it felt very, very strange to me. And it kind of, it felt like a weird way to handle that backstory.
Yeah. No, I thought that was weird too. And I also felt like Henry, by virtue of those scenes, he's already kind of like a huge douchebag as far as I can tell, because he's making this girl with a cane who does not want to drive take him home so she can then walk home and make someone else pick up the car later.
Yeah.
Like, how is he okay with that, like, more than once? Like, just over and over again asking? Like, doesn't that feel very invasive?
Well,
like,
the other
he
dumb
supposedly
thing...
cares about her, but he never once just says, like, oh, yeah, I could walk home because you're walking.
The real dumb thing, too, is, like, leave the car at his house and walk there in the morning, and he can drive you both to school. Like...
True, yeah.
You can make this a mutually beneficial thing, and it could be like your drive time together, right? It felt like that was just supposed to be like a weird quirk of hers that made like the family curious about, oh, who's this girl who just leaves the car in front of the house? That's so weird.
Yeah.
So
like I just don't know if I'm Austin Abrams and I don't feel like hoofing it from her place home. Why am I okay with her driving to my place and then hoofing it in a cane back home?
Yeah.
I should just feel like strictly worse about that.
I mean, the first time he obviously didn't know she was going to walk home, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then she just walks home and he's like, oh, okay, cool. And then the second time he's being a douchebag.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he just keeps doing it. I know this is a weird nitpick, but like I did check. And like, because there's a few like big songs in this movie, mostly like a beach house song, which also I do not believe the emotional like turn that happens regarding that song in this movie. That's one of those things that feels like I get when it was written that it would be like a meaningful way to talk about trauma, but in the moment it just fell flat to me. But there's like, all those songs were literally like when I was in college, those songs were cool. and I went back and listened, like I looked at the soundtrack to Paper Towns and it was the same way. Like most of the songs were from like 2010. So I feel like all these movies are being made by people who are like in our generation who are like, yeah, this stuff still like rocks. This is still what all the cool kids would listen to.
Well, they're making it true to when they were that age.
Yeah. But it's set in modern day. I don't know. It feels like it wouldn't be that hard to just like make it Post Malone or something else. I don't know.
Maybe it's about how much it costs to get rights to some of those songs.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to feel like this. What else you got from like maybe 10 years ago? But yeah, the next thing that I kind of want to talk about, which is another thing that I'm going to have to kind of dance around to not get too spoilery. But you sort of jokingly talked about a dress scene. And that scene, I think, is probably my least favorite scene in the entire film. This is where like things break down, and you kind of get like the full dump of emotion to experience. And there's a certain line she says, and I'm gonna bleep out some of the words, but Steven at least don't want to talk about it. She says, I was gonna and no, you weren't. Like, why are you buying that when
you
were
in 17?
Yeah, like you don't have any context for that. And I don't know, something about that made me so mad. And obviously, I assume that's supposed to give us a heightened theory of maybe why she was going to that place. And maybe intentions she might have had if he were not to heroically come running there. But it seemed like such a weird, it was just another example of many lines in this film that feel like somebody wrote them because they think they should be in films like this and not because they had real emotion or thought or meaning behind them.
Yeah. Yeah. It also like, I don't know if you ever had to read Great Expectations, but there's like strong Miss Havisham vibes of just like the crazy old lady who wears her like tattered wedding dress. I didn't like it. I felt like it didn't do justice to her character. Like, again, I understand people can be dealing with things and not everyone is clean about the way that they grieve. You know, sometimes it could be a breakdown. It just felt she toes this line in that scene between I am having a breakdown to I am completely lucid and talking you through what I'm feeling. And it just, I didn't like it at all. I felt like, and not only that, but like earlier in the movie, there's a scene where he is running to go find her. And I turned to Joanna and I was like, all right, is he going to the factory or going to the roadside? And then like he went to a different place. And then like 20 minutes later, he's running to find her again. And it was like, all right, factory or roadside. Like it's just such a cliche. Like, you know, when they tee up a location that it's going to come up later in the movie as the thing only he knows.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I'm so down on the cliches of this movie. Like, plenty of these movies are cliched, but for some reason this one felt like very formulaic in a way that was kind of cynical to me.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question that I always think about in all of these type of films. I don't know if I brought it up in Paper Towns, but Paper Towns has a similar sort of thing. So the factory itself as a trope of these type of films, in all these films, all these YA type films, young kids like to go into abandoned places as if it's just totally safe, right?
Yeah, as if there isn't someone like doing meth right next to you.
Like, as a full-on grown adult, I'm a grown-ass man, right? I just turned 37. I'm not going to go into an abandoned water factory or whatever the hell this place was.
Especially not till nightfall.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember that, too, watching Paper Towns, where they're like, oh, yeah, I mean, all the windows are boarded up, and this place looks like nobody's been in it for a long-ass time, but let me just kick in this little piece of glass and crawl inside it. Like, no, don't go in there. What is wrong with you?
Yeah. Also, if I'm in an abandoned factory with like a pool of sitting water, I'm not going in there.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that is like healthy to
Steven,
like just put your body in.
The koi fish, they keep it clean.
Yeah, sure.
It's definitely some...
I forgot about the koi fish already. I forgot that they were in there too.
Oh yeah, Steven. Symbolism.
Also, how does paper burn? Because there's a moment at the end of this movie that implies that paper burns very differently than I believe it burns.
No, so what I think is, I honestly think that I think it was a scene that was meant to be funny, and then it wasn't working, so they edited it differently. My assumption is there was an attempted burning which didn't quite succeed, which turned into tearing up. Like, that's kind of my impression of that, is like somebody trying to burn something and it won't burn, so then them just getting frustrated and tearing it up into a bunch of pieces.
Yeah. Okay. The broken vase stuff really... that just took it to a whole other level of predictable for me.
Yeah.
That was not a fan. He's also working on that one for a very long time.
Just like he was working on that girl for a very long time.
A year of high school goes by over the course of this movie, and I think their relationship is only like 3 months of that year. But there's like a long montage where the rest of his time is going by, and it's like one piece every 3 months or something that he adds to it.
You know what would have just solved all the problems of this movie? Is if this was a film that took place either between junior and senior year or between high school and college, and she moved in next door to him, and then they could be alone. There doesn't need to be a whole school full of people that don't actually exist or do anything important to the story. It could just be him interacting with this girl next door and them doing everything else that they do on their own the same, but you eliminate the rest of the need for trying to provide backstory for the other kids that they failed to do in this film. And I think that basically the story could be exactly the same, and it could be about the summer before he went on to college. And then, like all those other stories, he would have this relationship stuff to take into his first year of college, and you could end with him hopefully walking onto campus for the first time and like You know, like it just, I don't know. It seems like it solves a lot of the problems that this film has if you just do that.
Yep. No, it would definitely help.
Cool. Well, what do you say we help this episode along towards the end and get to our verdict, Stephen?
Sure.
All right, Stephen Miller, if you're going to say must see, recommend with a caveat, wait for rental, pass with a caveat, or a must avoid, what would you give it?
If I were being fair, I would go pass with a caveat, but I haven't been mean in a while, and I just want to be mean today. So I'm giving this a full-on must avoid. I feel like it has been 5 years, and this movie literally does everything worse than Paper Towns did it. Like, I think the lead, Austin Abrams, is strictly worse than Nat Wolff was. The, like, Instagram star co-lead, Lili Reinhart, I think her character is given way less to do than Cara Delevingne was back then. I think the dialogue is nowhere near as good as that movie was. I think the visuals don't have much to offer. It just feels kind of cynical. It falls flat. It doesn't do anything, and it's very predictable, and not in the good, heartwarming way. It was just in the kind of waste of time way. So I didn't think it had anything to recommend it, and I'm sure every generation needs one of these movies, so it's fine that they keep regurgitating them every year or two, but for me, this one really didn't work, and I was sad because I usually am pretty touchy-feely when it comes to these like coming-of-age movies, but I also stop casting people who are like 24 to play high school seniors. I know it's not that big a difference, but it does start to feel weird after a while. Like, they're all way too precocious.
I mean, it's better than them having a littler sister who is even more precocious than they are.
Yeah. Oh, God. Speaking of sisters, I didn't even rant to you about that scene where his fucking sister, like adult sister, comes into his room and just bursts out crying in this, like, I'm auditioning for the school play melodramatic
Let
way.
me explain to you that being heartbroken is literally like having your heart broken, and it's the exact same pain. Your brain takes signals from your emotions and turns them into physical signals of the body that make you think you're dying. So that's why it hurts so bad to be broken up with.
Yeah, and that's why if you only buy these crystals I'm selling, you can you can fix the chemical chakra.
That would have been great if that was just the thesis of this movie. So yeah, I am not going to be as mean as you, not because I think this film is great, because it's not, but because I'll be fully honest. I watched this with Jamie and we talked through the whole movie. So there was an added level of enjoyment by us just talking through everything that was happening. Another benefit of watching at home and not having to be in a theater. But yeah, so I'm going to give it a...
Were you talking about the movie, or you were just having a conversation?
Oh, no, we were talking about the movie.
Okay.
Obviously, she is a teacher of students who could be these students, so there's a lot of fodder for...
We theorized that you might enjoy this movie slightly more because of that dynamic, depending on how you watched it.
Yeah, so there is definitely a way to talk about this that comes with added benefit that doesn't actually belong to the film itself, which just belongs to the realities of the real world. So I'm going to give it a pass with a caveat. I definitely texted Steven the trailer to this movie on Friday and was like, so we going to cry this weekend? And there were no tears in this film, unfortunately. So
I didn't cry.
Didn't live up to expectations. So, and I cry at all kinds of shit. So that tells you how this film missed the mark.
I plan on crying in Bill and Ted next week.
I probably will too, because it'll be so excellent. So. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Spoiler Warning Podcast. Stephen Miller, if people want to find you throughout the week, where is it that they can do that?
Well, if you were my good friend, you would know where to find me when I disappear, and you would come running after me just in the nick of time. Now you can find me at twitter.com/sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or Twitter.com/ChristopherIRL. You can find the podcast over at TheSpoilerWarning.com, where you can get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so on Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. Yeah, if you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning, facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from the soundtrack to Chemical Hearts, so hopefully you are enjoying that.
It's got to be that Beach House song, I guess.
Is that the one that he puts on the poorly timed playlist? Okay.
Exactly.
There is a score, but I can find that song, I guess. But yeah, that's it for this week. Next week, I think, as we were getting ready to record this episode, we talked ourselves into a triple review of the Bill and Ted trilogy. So get ready for that. That should be pretty fun.
Hell yeah. We're just working up to our 9er.
We'll see. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Later.